Happy Engineer, welcome back. And I am here today with the personal development master himself, none other than my good friend Agi, who I had the privilege of being on your show, Personal Development Mastery, not too long ago. And I've been really excited to get you back here on the Happy Engineer. Welcome to the podcast, man. Glad you made time.
Zach, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to being on the other end of the microphone, because last time it was me that was asking the questions, and that was an amazing episode as well. I was telling you just before we hit the record that it's been one of the most popular in my podcast, so it's great to be here.
Amazing. Well, you have so much to bring in terms of personal development that I was telling you, it's like, how do we pick a place to start? But I do think it's important to frame up the fact that you have lived the experience that so many people have found themselves in. On paper, life looked pretty good. You know, you had a career or an occupation as a dentist, I assume made good money. You know, you had checked all the boxes, you had your degrees and everything was good. But on the inside, it's like, it's not working. This isn't it. I feel directionless, et cetera. And I just want you to tell us a little bit about what led up to that point where you had what you called your midlife awakening, because it's something so many of us have experienced. And I'd love to hear your story. How did we get to that point? What were the things that led up to it? And what really put the straw on the camel's back, so to speak, that led to this huge shift in your journey? Tell us what was going on.
That's a great start of the conversation. And yes, I agree with you that it is fairly common, and I have seen it over and over again with people I've spoken with, to have a life that on the outside or from society standards, it looks really good, admirable. Yes, I was a dentist, earning good money. I had just finished a master's degree, so I had all the, the advanced knowledge and so on. But I was not feeling fulfilled inside of me. And the midlife awakening, and I will move it to that moment, because I think the build up to that was gradual and it took years. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I didn't really understand it. I didn't pay attention to it that much because it was subtle. And also because, as many of us do, when they feel that kind of discomfort or unease inside of them, it's very easy to distract yourself and forget about it. So not think about it or contemplate on it. So you can distract yourself with all sorts of things. So I kind of build up slowly, gradually to it. And the turning point really was when after I graduated from my master's degree, and I was around 40 years old at that time, where I had all this knowledge, and I had dedicated 2 years of my life plus a significant amount of money to study and do that course, that master's degree. I found myself not only not wanting to do any of that, but I found, as you said, directionless or without a sense of fulfillment or motivation. And I was wondering, the first thing I thought was, there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? I should be right now, after everything that I've done, I should be really pumped up and to apply all that I've learned and do great restorative work or aesthetic work, etc. That realization that I was lacking motivation, and also the fact that I started wondering what's wrong with me, that was, to answer your question, the point that I started looking for answers. I couldn't ignore it anymore because it started becoming painful. And also, the fact that I was turning 40, and for any of your listeners that have turned 40, there is this kind of, you mentioned the term midlife, I said midlife awakening. There is some kind of inner change that happens. You realize that you're not very young anymore. Yes, you're not old, but you're not in your 20s, in your 30s. You kind of reach perhaps a midpoint or something like that. So all this really led me to start looking for answers, and that took me to my personal development journey, to my self-exploration.
So I love and appreciate how you described this, and what I hear all the time, and I experienced as well, is it's more painful for most people, most of the engineers that I coach and talk to have hit their goals, but wake up still feeling that lack of fulfillment, that frustration, they're unhappy. And it's like, wait a minute, I did all the things I set out to do and I still feel this way. That is a worse place for them than when you're on the climb early in your career and maybe you go for a big goal and you fail. Something doesn't work out. You have a setback, or you know, whatever. You go through a rejection for a big interview. Like, that hurts, but at least it makes sense. Like, oh, okay, it hurts because I missed on my goal. I'm going to get back up and go try again. And you give it my best, and then you get it next time and you feel like you're making progress. But there's something about that point when you've hit a peak on paper, as we described, but on the inside, you're still disconnected. And what I want to do for a moment, we didn't necessarily plan for this, but I think it's so important, is actually going back. You said it was a slow process. It wasn't like one day I woke up unhappy, unfulfilled, and asking these questions of what's wrong with me. It was a slow, gradual decay. If I was to take that 2020 vision, looking back at your life, and say, Agi, what are the milestones or the signposts that might have been clues that you were trending in that direction before you actually got to the point of turning 40 and it really hit you hard? What do you think those might have been? And if you had seen the signposts then, do you think it's possible that you could have avoided some of those feelings of pain or despair or lost, that you did experience? So what were the signposts, if you could reflect on them? And do you think it's possible to avoid these kind of burnout moments if we follow the signs?
I will start by answering the second part of your question, which is easier. Yes, I'm absolutely certain that you can avoid reaching that bottom point or that really more painful experience.
Yes.
If you pay attention to the previous signs. There is a difficulty that many of us face, though, or most of us face, that we don't pay attention to these smaller signs, these nudges that we are given.
Yes.
And that also comes back to what I was saying earlier, that I would distract myself. It is easy to distract yourself and say, okay, well, I'm going to cope through this week, and the weekend I will go out and have fun or go on a trip or something like that.
Yes.
But looking back now and reflecting, and the thing that comes to my mind was my desire to always get more and do more and learn more or go at a higher level. And maybe that sounds a little bit as a contradiction, because that's a natural part of us wanting to improve. So I'm not talking about improvement as a person. I'm talking about getting more.
Yeah.
And
chasing
I was
some
chasing
level of success. Yes.
Yes. And when you were framing your question, Tony Robbins came to mind, that says that there is the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. So achieving things is very scientific. If you follow, there is a process to succeed. If you follow it, you will succeed. However, feeling fulfilled, there's nothing scientific about that. It is an art. He calls it an art, and it has to come from inside. So that's where I found myself succeeding or doing more to succeed. And when I did not feel that fulfillment that I was expecting, then starting to think, okay, I probably need to do something more or something different. And I think that is, suppose, familiar to many listening right now, that endless loop of wanting to get more, to achieve more. But if you are not already appreciating what you have achieved so far, getting even more of that won't bring you fulfillment. There's not any point like that from my experience.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, this is a good one. And I think it's really important, because engineers, we are guilty of this as much as anyone, where we hit a certain level in our career, and for a little bit, we feel great. Maybe it's a day or a week, or if you're lucky, maybe a month, where you're still really enjoying the energy of the celebration of hitting the milestone or getting the bigger paycheck or the bonus. But what's interesting is I think so many of us, myself included, can relate to the idea that that fades quickly, that moment of exhilaration of hitting the goal is over before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of taking that feeling of emptiness on the other side of the goal as a nudge, that we need to look at life through a new lens and understand this art of fulfillment and do something different to satisfy the happiness and the side of us that seeks purpose. Like, we should do something different than chase another goal. Instead of taking the nudge towards that fulfillment question, we just set up the next goal. We move the milestone. We say, well, I know I feel good when I hit goals for at least a little while, so I'll go chase the next dopamine hit of the goal. And it's so interesting. Like, the signal is there. Hey, it's not a lasting experience of fulfillment to just hit goals. But rather than taking that nudge and exploring fulfillment deeply at this stage, we just set another goal. We're addicted to that process. So landmark or road sign number one, if I am constantly chasing the next level of success as my only source of fulfillment, I'm missing the signpost. I'm not doing what my heart and my soul is asking me to do in that moment, which is something different. Amazing. I totally agree. So is there anything else as far as signposts in your life that you might have ignored on that trend towards your ultimate midlife awakening?
Nothing comes to mind like specific signposts. I wish there was something I could tell you. You know what, Zach, there was that one moment that I really ignored that thing that happened. Maybe there was something, but it doesn't come to mind. So it probably was not such a milestone as one might expect. As I said, it was a gradual build-up.
Yeah.
However, I'm very much convinced that if I had at that time, let's say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, if I had that awareness that I have now, I would be able to pinpoint them and maybe realize that they are signposts at that time. Because right now, looking back at them, they are a little bit of a blur. I didn't really feel they were important, because it was, you know how that analogy where they put the frog in the water and they warm the water and the frog doesn't feel any discomfort, and but if you put him in a boiling water, it will be very uncomfortable. So it's that gradual discomfort.
I really respect that. And I feel the same way. And so many of my clients can relate. It's like, well, I just didn't see it coming until it was too late. And I'm thinking of those t-shirts or billboards that say, like, this is the sign that you're looking for. You know, they're just kind of joking. It's kind of like that. You know, maybe this conversation for someone is that sign, or they go to a conference and they have that motivational speaker that says the thing that resonates. And what I've found is we have these little opportunities put in front of us, that little nudge, like you said, where you have a chance to respond before you fall off the deep end. But we don't actually believe that there's a problem because it's so gradual. It just feels like life is fine. It's normal. It's okay. You know, I think the challenge for everyone, myself included, is taking every moment, not at just, you know, face value, it's fine, but to say, what can I learn and what shift towards the life of my dreams can I take right now, rather than waiting for turning 40 or whatever it is. So you did not, fortunately, fall off the deep end and totally crash and have a crisis that ended your existence, right? You took that and you really went deep into that discovery and that process of saying, why am I here? What do I want to create? And you had a radical transformation after that has since led to 400 plus amazing episodes of your podcast and a book that you've released on the 88 actionable insights for life from all the wisdom you've gained. What was the most important thing you did differently coming out of that place of slipping at 40 and your awakening, what was the most important thing that changed the trajectory for you?
I wish I could say there was only one, but if I had to pick one, it came as a result of me attending a Tony Robbins event back in 2017, where on the other side of the event, I turned out a person that, and to answer your question very specifically without really going into detail of that, I became the person, or I started acting different in the sense that I would speak out what I wanted to say. Whereas before that time, I was very reserved. I was apprehensive, especially with people I didn't know. I was the shy person, the person that really doesn't want to be criticized, doesn't want to have any confrontations or even feel maybe ridiculed in some way, because I was thinking that, will they listen to what I have to say? Is there something interesting for me to say? And I'm talking not about with the interactions I had with my circle, the people that I knew and knew me. I meant with all the new people I would meet. Having a conversation like this on a podcast, or having a podcast on my own, or doing public speaking as I did afterwards, were not only unthinkable, that would be probably my worst fear.
Worst nightmare, yeah.
I had turned down. I remember they had asked me to go and speak to some students in a school about the importance of brushing your teeth or something like that. I said, no way. There's no way for me to go and speak in front of people. Even though I knew the topic, I knew what I would talk about. So the action that I took differently was that I started not really considering whether the other people would like what I said or not. I know now, on hindsight, that some people will really resonate with what I have to say and others won't. And that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. But before that time, I wasn't. I would avoid speaking out my mind because I didn't want anyone not liking me or maybe thinking, oh, Aggie doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever.
That's so powerful. I've asked similar questions to a lot of guests, Aggie, and most people say things like, started reading more books on personal development or reaching out for help from a coach or a therapist or, these kinds of things. All of those are great. But for us to recognize the power of the spoken word, to take what's in your heart and in your mind and put words to it, which is that creation of meaning, and speaking it into existence with courage to say, whether you reject or accept what I say, I must say it. Like, it needs to come out of me into the world. And that is a creation force. It's no surprise that the transformation began accelerating for you as you start doing that. I think engineers need to hear that. That's incredibly powerful. So let's do this then. I want everybody to go get a copy of your 88 actionable insights for life, because while you may not be an engineer, the things that you have discovered, every engineer needs to know. And it would take us days to cover all 88 in the depth that they deserve on the podcast. But I'd love it if you would tell me, in that growth journey, in that recovery and discovering yourself in a new way, and now the 400 plus conversations on your podcast and everything else, what would be one of those 88 as a place to start, as an actionable insight that's really meaningful to you?
Can I say something just before I will answer that in a moment?
Yeah, please.
I may not be an engineer, but I believe I share very much in common this analytical element that engineers have, because I am, as a person, I'm very analytical, and I always have been. And I think even more when I did my master's degree, I had to even become more. I know very well how it feels.
Yeah, the way we think.
Yeah, to analyze everything to painful details of things. And that's to our detriment many times. I'm not saying always, but many times we overanalyze, and that produces all sorts of problems on its own. So that's like...
Well, and introversion and shyness and the things that you've overcome, most engineers can relate to all of those experiences as well. So I agree. I didn't in any way want to say like, you don't get us. I think you're right. You're cut from the exact same cloth as so many folks in engineering. So that said, take us to your favorite actionable insight?
The one that comes to my mind, first of all, is the having a morning routine, which for a
Oof.
long time I didn't have one, or I didn't have a deliberate one, because there's something that everyone needs to realize, that we all have a morning routine,
Mm-hmm.
whether we know it or not. It's what it is that you do once you wake up, maybe the first hour after you wake up. So for many people, unfortunately, that's not planned, it's not deliberate, and it's many times disempowering. So for
Oof.
example, if the first thing that you do when you hear the alarm button is to hear the alarm is press the snooze button, then you already start messing up your day, because this is the first decision you take when the day starts.
Yes.
So the day starts and the first decision is, oh, I need to snuggle a little bit more and remain comfortable. And that, whether you realize it or not, it sets the tone for the rest of the decisions that you will take in the day. So that's one thing. So another thing, for example, is not to go to pick up your phone and start checking emails, social media, whatever else has nothing to do with you directly, because immediately you're giving your power. You know what, Zach, in the morning when we wake up, it's probably one of the very few periods of the day, if not the only one, that you are in control, for most of us anyway, because after a while, when you go out of the house, or when the rest of the family wakes up, or everything else, you're
Mm-hmm.
not very much in control of what might happen. But if you plan your waking up, and the first, I will say hour, but for many people 1 hour is not practical, but even let's say half an hour, and I think we all deserve to give it to ourselves, half an hour of time that is planned, is deliberate, and it's empowering, and do some specific things that will empower us through the day, in a
Yeah.
way fortify us. It's like putting an armor on for everything that will happen
Yes.
afterwards.
Yes.
Uh,
So there's two things I just need to highlight, because
yeah,
it's so subtle but so important. The idea of don't hit the snooze button, somebody might totally gloss over that, but it's not about the action. It's about what that decision and that
means.
direction represents for your subconscious mind, that the way I start my day is to seek comfort rather than to boldly and consciously leap into my day with energy and enthusiasm and excitement. And some people hear that and they're like, Zach, you don't know my life. You don't have like wake up with excitement. No way. Well, you know what? There's work to do then. Like this is really important. And then the idea of, are you taking your energy and using it to empower yourself for the day ahead, or are you taking your energy and giving it away to other people as your first choice of the day? Like that's huge. It's such a big shift. So I love this. And I'll say one other thing. I want to let you keep going, but I've had a lot of people tell me it's not possible for me to do this, to have this time, because, and they start filling in all the reasons. I've got 3 kids. I've got, to help with X, or I have this thing going on. Well, my sister, I'm going to shout out Amanda. She has 6 kids from just under a year old all the way up to 11 years old. And she has maintained that 20 to 30 minutes of time for herself in her life since the first child was born all the way through. It has always been a priority for her, and she's made it happen. And I just tell people, like, look, if a mom of 6 can make 20 minutes for herself every single day, so can you. So stop with the excuses. You can do it. It's just a matter of your commitment to it. So, Agi, is there anything else you'd say, if we're going to take action on a morning routine, is the most important things to consider to get the value from that time?
Yes, there are. I will say quickly as a comment that you mentioned waking up with excitement. Don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily wake up with excitement every single day. However, this is where discipline gets in. And even though I don't feel excited because maybe I didn't sleep very well or for whatever other reason, I would still get out of bed because I have developed the discipline to do so. So that's one
good.
thing.
That's
The
good.
other thing is, if anyone says that I can't really you don't know my life, as you said, and that can't happen to me, I will use a term that is very familiar to you and your audience, then you have to engineer that first part of your day in a way that it facilitates that. If you have to wake up half an hour earlier, then wake up half an hour earlier. You have to find out a way to do it somehow. So these are two things that came to mind, but if I were to give some more specific or actionable things, I will, first of all, I will refer people. There is that book by Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning, where he describes the I think it's 5 elements of a morning routine. Some of them is like taking some time for silence, either that is journaling or meditation or something like that. I always like to use gratitude as a practice, which might take only a couple of minutes, but there are there are so many elements of a morning routine, and we could have a whole episode just for that. I do have a chapter actually in the book about morning routines. I think the most important thing for someone listening to this conversation to realize is, first of all, take the decision to have a deliberate morning routine. Once you make that decision, then what you will do with that half an hour or 1 hour, you will figure it out. There are so many resources that really empower you for the day, and we mentioned in passing some of them already. But it's deciding and sticking to the decision that I am going to have an empowering, purposeful, deliberate morning routine.
I love that. I love that. Make the decision, engineer the solution, run the test, right? And give it enough time, commit to it, build that discipline to see the results. I've seen other people give up on morning routines because they did it 2 days and felt like it was just making them tired that they got up earlier. It's like, well, your life doesn't change in 2 days of doing this. Agi, you mentioned the word meditation. And I know it's one of the other 88 actionable insights for life that's in your book. And I'm curious what type of meditation practice you have, and how did you stumble into or get introduced to meditation in your life?
Oh, Zach, I was introduced to meditation many, many years ago, but I never had it as a regular practice. I think what facilitated me doing it regularly was that period, that midlife awakening, that I came across some apps. One of them was called Calm, a nice straightforward app for someone who is not familiar or is not practiced meditation a lot. That's a great entry point. And there is another one called Headspace, which I used for a while. So these are, you can do a session in only 10 minutes. You use the app, you put your headphones on, and it gives you a great entry point. Nowadays, because I have, this has been a daily practice to me for many years now, and it's, if I were to say, probably the only non-negotiable part of my morning routine is that. If I don't have time for anything else, because of, I don't know, something might have happened, I will find time to do at least 10 minutes of meditation. Nowadays, I do much more than 10 minutes. And to answer your question, nowadays, I do a different kind of meditation called Vipassana, which is a much more powerful technique and gets you deeper and so on. So it really depends on how familiar one is with the meditation. If they're not, an app is a great entry point. If you are and you want to upgrade, there's another app, Waking Up by Sam Harris, which I still use from time to time because it has a depth and it is at let's say a next level. So
what's the biggest benefit that you experience in your life as a result of that daily practice of meditation?
Calmness. There is more calmness, and don't get me wrong, I'm far from being a Buddha, but but there are, in situations that they don't go the way that I would like them to go, where the default response would be to get upset or whatever it is in one's habitual pattern. I will take that time, that moment, to stop for a moment before reacting And sometimes it works. It doesn't work all the time, but the more I practice it, the better I become at it, so that there is that slight pause between the event happening and my reaction to it.
Right.
Because for many of us, it's automatic. Something happens, you react. Meditation has helped me to give a moment, even if a moment of pause there, and that can really change the way you respond to it. You respond rather than react to the situation.
Yeah, I think this is a really important takeaway for people. If you're not satisfied with the way that you show up to your life with these responses and, you know, versus reactions, and maybe you have a short temper or you fall into a sense of sadness or depression easily, or fill in the blank, you just aren't happy with the way that's going, this is a place to make a decision and focus. Agi, I worked with a meditation coach for a while, and he used to say, I meditate for 20 minutes a day, non-negotiable every day, unless I'm too busy. And then I meditate for 40 minutes on that day. And I used to laugh at that and sort of the sentiment, like, oh, you know, lots of us say, oh, I meditate unless I'm too busy, and then I don't. Well, it's actually the exact opposite. You know, if you're too busy for that time, it's even more important for you to commit to that time. And if anything, go against the part of you that wants to resist meditation and put even more time into it. And I don't always honor that sentiment. Sometimes when I'm busy, I don't double down on my meditation. I know that would be good for me. But I think this is the shift we need to make. I've had a lot of clients tell me, well, you know, meditation back in the day, I don't know what day they're thinking of, but it's like, oh, it used to make sense because people had a slower pace of life and there was more free time and they could explore mindset or spirituality deeper at that time, or their faith. And, you know, we have so much to do now, and the world we live in now, it doesn't make sense anymore. And I just think, well, it's completely backwards. Like, you need it now more than ever, because the pace of inputs and the amount going on in our world, it's like our hardware and our psychology and our nervous system wasn't designed for, I was looking for my cell phone here. For those who are watching YouTube, it's like, what's he doing? I was just going to pick it up and hold it. But it's like, we're so oversaturated with data input now. You need that time of calm more than ever. At least that's my perspective. Would you agree with that, or do you have a different lens?
Absolutely. I agree with you. And the times have changed. There is one undisputable fact that each and every single one of us throughout history has always had 24 hours. That has never changed. So it's a matter of putting a priority into it, I think. More than anything else. But I completely agreed with what you said, and I have heard that phrase before, that if you don't have time to eat, do twice as much.
Yes. I was gonna love it. Well, Agi, I mean, this is just 2 actionable insights from your journey in personal development. And I think if I would commit to both of these well, which fortunately I do, these are both a part of my life, I could tell you they alone create a tremendous shift in the trajectory of my future. And I think every engineer listening should take that to heart and say, is this something I need to decide and act on? But there's 86 more. So I know we need to wrap up for today. We can't cover all 86, but where can engineers go get connected to you and to your incredible work and grab the copy of the book?
Thank you. Right. So my podcast, first of all, is called Personal Development Mastery. For those of you watching, it's right there. And you can find the episode with Zach in particular. I highly recommend it. What I will do, Zach, I will offer the ebook as a present to your listeners and your viewers. So if you go to agikeramidas.com/88, which I'm sure you will find in the show notes, you will be able to download an electronic version of the book for free. And then you can dive deep into the good thing about the book is that you don't have to read it from back to back if you don't want to. You can really pinpoint the topics that really interest you and do that. And my advice would be to really, the ones that resonate with you, or even one that resonates with you, take action on it and make a routine out of it for more than 2 days, as you mentioned. Just do it for a little while and see how everything else changes. So you can find me on social media and so on, but I think the book, it's something valuable, and I believe there are some insights there, not just insights, actionable insights. I think that's the key word there.
Yes.
That can
Yes.
really one pick up and implement, and they have the power to improve one's life.
Incredible. So, Happy Engineer, do me a favor right now. Pause this episode, go over to Personal Development Mastery, the podcast. Augie's an incredible host, 400 plus episodes of content to go and build your career, your life, and your own personal development mastery. So give him a follow and check out the podcast, and then go into our show notes and download the book. You actually had a physical copy earlier. Can you hold that up? Like, for those who are watching on YouTube, I mean, this is not like a 10-page little ebook of one-liners. This is like a 200-page PDF here that you're about to get your hands on. So it's an incredible gift. Go get a free copy of the ebook, 88 Actionable Insights for Life. You won't regret that. Some incredible, incredible information there. Augie, thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to see where we finish today with all that you've discovered and learned coming through the journey you've been on in personal development. You know, as well as any guest I've ever had, that in our lives, questions lead and answers follow. Yeah. And so many of us are looking for better answers in our careers, in our families, in our health, in our life. And so we need to ask better questions. So what would be that question you would lead the Happy Engineer with today?
Zach, the question I would leave your Happy Engineer with is, do you know that thing that you know that you want to do or you should do, and you keep putting it off? You know that thing. Just start taking some action on that. Stop putting it off. Take some action towards that, no matter how small. Can be picking up the phone and making a phone call, or browsing on a website about that. But what is that thing that you know you need to do and you have been postponing?
Stop postponing. Now's the time. Augie, thanks again for being here. That is such an amazing question. What's that thing you know you want to do or you should do and you're not doing it? Today is the day. Decide and take action. That is so amazing. Augie, thank you for your generosity today. You are amazing. It's been a pleasure, man.